Welcome to the Property Guide. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, obviously, we're adjusting to the big change that we saw in the center over a month ago. But how much has changed on the ground for us as property buyers and for the property industry? Are we more optimistic about sales? Is money going to start flowing into this industry? And how much can we expect from the budget that we hear from this new government in the next couple of months? To answer all of these questions, I have with me Niranjan Hiranandani. Mr. Hiranandani, if I may call you Niranjan, thank you so much for joining us on the Property Guide. We know that the government has met with various stakeholders, that they're listening to what the industry wants, to what people want, and they're preparing their first budget. Tell me what you think your expectations are right now from the budget announcement.
First of all, you have to understand what is Mr. Modi's expectations of the budget, rather than mine and yours and the people. So you have to go to the manifesto, and the manifesto says very clearly 25 million houses by the 75th independence of India. So obviously there is already in the mind of Mr. Modi that there is going to be a huge difference in terms of the real estate and housing in segment. So I think we are expecting from the budget, because he needs to do that, and without doing that he's not going to be able to succeed. So we are expecting lots of things in the budget. A, which looks after the people who buy the houses. B, who will look at the investors who are going to actually put in the money into the marketplace. And the third, obviously, how to expedite development, because that's a disaster beyond imaginations. We're just not able to get permissions, we're not able to get clearances, it's riddled with corruption, and we're a thorough failure in terms of execution. So I think these three aspects will have to be seen. Probably Mr. Modi will see the first and the second, but I hope ultimately he sees the third.
Right, I want to take this step by step. Let's talk first about one home for every Indian family by the year 2022, which is the 75th anniversary of our independence. That would mean about 20 million urban homes and 40 million rural homes. Is that ambitious? Because that's not too long away from where we are.
You have to understand that in 1972, a very short prime minister by the name of Lal Bahadur Shastri said Green Revolution. And he, with illiterate farmers, no communication, was able to achieve it in 2 years. Why can't Mr. Modi do it? You have IPOs, you have FDIs, you have the kind of fundings that you can possibly imagine. You have the wherewithal. The equipment and technology is all available here in this country. We have labor over here. We have the resources. Now we have the mindset. That's the combination that will work. I don't see any problem in achieving it. If he puts his mind to it and the industry cooperates, the local governments cooperate, I think that's the mixture that we need to make it successful.
But I want to ask you a couple of questions that came in on Twitter as well. One of which came in from Indraneel Gokhale, who said, what are your expectations from the new government now? We could talk about this for half an hour and I don't have that much time. So I want to narrow that down. If you had one thing on the wish list that you would want to put on top priority for this new government as an expectation, what would that be?
I'm sorry, I don't have one, I have many. But I'm going to take a little more time than what you have asked for. See, first you have to look at it from the customer's point of view. The tax deduction which is there is 1,50,000. It's been stuck for last 10 years. We need to at least increase it to 5 lakhs of rupees. So people who buy a house are in difficulty. They're paying interest, they're paying outgoings, they're buying furniture, etc., etc. So I think the interest deduction should be allowed completely, if not a cap of 5 lakhs of rupees. From a customer's point of view, that's very, very important. The second point of view is that there must be an incentive for small housing. We had it before, it's been withdrawn. 80IB was tax exemption for small houses, and I think it needs to be brought back. It was misused by some of the developers, so it was done that. We can change it by putting heavier penalties for people who abuse it, but it should be brought back if you really want small housing to take place. The third is prioritization. We need to change and put a prioritization of giving a status to housing, which should be infrastructure status, which means townships like I make here in Thane or in Powai takes long-term funding. So we need infrastructure status for such fundings to actually take place. And of course, the most important thing is the permission business. It's a business which needs to be curtailed. Somehow or the other, I don't know how we are going to start, but if we don't do this, all the aspirations of all the prime ministers, including Mr. Modi, will be lost if we don't really curb that. permissions take forever, and there is extortion all the way. So I think somewhere down the line that needs to be curbed, but I'm hoping that with the new government and the new vision, it's really going to happen, and hopefully it happens very quickly.
So permissions is one end. The other problem that the industry has been facing obviously is funding and raising investments. How far away do you think REITs is for us right now?
REITs will happen. SEBI has been very kind. They've already got the rules into place. I believe the Reserve Bank of India is also supporting it. Finance Ministry has to put in 3 things into place. First, they have to get a pass-through like you do in the case of mutual funds, which you are very knowledgeable about. And second, we need to get the stamp duty to be brought equivalent to mortgage, because today it's 5%. No REIT will work with 5% stamp duty. And again, that's a state subject. So if it's brought equivalent to a mortgage, which is 0.1%, etc., with a cap, I think that will happen. And the third is capital gains on the first transfer to the REIT. The trust of the REIT or the company which actually handles the REIT is what nearly needs to come in the budget. So hopefully the REIT story will get into the budget this time, and the stamp duty will be taken up by the states like mortgages have been done. I think if we do these two, you'll get billions of dollars to come into the real estate industry, at least in terms of the rentals which are already accruing.
You know, I remember in January 2013, you said that you believe the industry or prices of real estate, residential, will grow by about 10 or 15% year on year. We've had a really bad year since then. Things have changed now. Sentiment has improved on the ground. People are looking at property very differently. Do you still think it's 10 or 15%? Do you want to revise that a little bit?
See, I have a different story today. That was January 2013. So I'm going to tell you a different story completely from what you heard from me in 2013 January. Today you're going to see a different movement completely. You're going to see a segmentation of industry like you saw in the case of airlines. Airlines was one airline which did low cost and high cost, regular business airline. You're going to see the same thing happen in the real estate industry. You're going to get a low-cost construction business which is going to be large, huge and fantastic, and there's going to be a segment which is going to be rich, luxurious, upper end and the middle end, which is really going to work, which is the industry which is of the past. So you will see the low-cost prices come down, because you will have to see that somehow the other land costs are controlled or brought into perspective, or by increase of FSI like they've done in the case of Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad, or in the case and of course bringing infrastructure into place, and high cost will also continue as the growth of the country takes place. So you're going to see a complete segmentation in this year happening starting from now, which will say this is low cost, this is where the big businesses of tomorrow, this is where the niche markets of yesterday are going to be. So you're going to see a growth story which will be 10,000% growth in the low cost segment. You're going to see a 10 to 15% growth in the high end segment. And of course, you'll see a growth in the segment that exists today, because there is still inflation and there is a cost plus situation which is happening. So this is going to grow by 5 to 10%. But what you're going to see is that the low cost business which is going to take place is going to really grow tremendously. You can't believe it. I can't even give you figures.
Do you think we need a regulator in the real estate industry right now?
Of course you need a regulator, but not the regulator which has been drafted.
Okay. What sort of a regulator then?
Because it's more a strangulator. You see, what you really need is the act should be called Real Estate Promotion and Regulation Act. What is it called? Real Estate Regulation Act. So you need to change that perspective. For example, the regulator has no powers to tell the government to give an approval. Or if it's delaying an approval, they cannot do anything about it. They can only catch the builder if he delays handing over the building. So the power is 97% with the regulator, 3% with the builder. But this regulation does not regulate the government. So how does this regulation work? How are you going to deliver goods? So what you need is a regulator which should be called Real Estate Promotion and Regulation Act, wherein the government actually promotes housing, brings more land into it, brings about approvals quickly. See, what I like about this act the most of all, and I think that is needed very badly, is the transparency that it brings about. You put everything on the net so everybody can see everything. That can happen even otherwise. You don't need to bring this difficult act to bring into place, and a whole series of bureaucrats who becomes inspectors who will run this matter. So what you need is a promotion of Real Estate Act.
You know, while we're talking about this, I want to bring up another question we got on Twitter from Mahavir Jain, who wrote in saying, don't you think that a penalty should be levied on builders who don't deliver within a specified time? Builders should give a specific date to customers on or before which they will make flats ready. I think the point we need to take from this is the lack of confidence in this. I mean, people pay upwards of 1 crore rupee for an apartment. I don't know when it's going to be delivered.
I am with you 500%. Yes, we should penalize the builder, to answer your question directly, for something which he is not able to deliver. And he should pay the penalty for it like any other agency. But what does he do? He's at the plinth level and it takes 7 months to get the permission further. He gets permission for height committee up to 10 floors, and to do beyond that it takes 1 year. He goes for environmental clearance because he wants to change the size of the tenements that he wants to do. It takes 1 year to get the approval. How can this country succeed if you have an over-regulated industry? Never work. And 25 million houses, you will not get 2 if you are going to go by the basis of the old system that is existing. So we have to change that.
All right, we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with Niranjan about low-cost housing and find out where the low-cost housing is in cities like Mumbai. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching The Property Guide on ET. Now we're in conversation with Niranjan Hiranandani. Niranjan, thank you so much for staying with us. When we went into break, we were talking about low-cost housing. Now, one of the biggest complaints we hear from customers is that Mumbai, for example, is completely unaffordable. It's impossible even for middle management to afford a home, because now we're talking upwards of 2 crore rupees for a 2-bedroom home, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Where does the problem lie right now?
See, there are 3 problems really. The first problem is the availability of land. As you know, the land, Mumbai is surrounded by water, and with CRZ and all these other restrictions in terms of where you can build. Then you have the zonal maps, and then you have the FSI restraint, which of course is getting diluted now as more and more FSI is being increased. On the peripheral areas, the problem is that you don't have railways, you don't have roads, you don't have connectivity, you don't have water, you don't have electricity, you don't have transport, you don't have schools, you don't have colleges, etc. So you just can't go in the wilderness and possibly stay. So what's the secret? The secret is threefold. First, you have to build transport to new areas in the surrounding areas, whether you do a cross-harbour connectivity, you build roads, etc. Then you have to build these smart towns that we are talking about, and see that the infrastructure of these towns are really done, where you build a school, you build a police station, you build a fire brigade, etc. that we need to do. And the third, you have to increase the FAR. There is no country in the world which has solved the housing problem where the land prices are high without increasing the FSI. But if you don't improve the infrastructure along, now we have selectively increased the FSI. So for redevelopment, we have done it. For Bandra Kurla complex, we have done it. For dilapidated buildings, we have done it. But we have done it selectively for sectors. What you need to do is to do like Hyderabad, where they have done away with FSI, and they have allowed you to construct as much, subject to 3 restrictions: the road width, firefighting, and parking. If you can do all these 3 things, you can increase the FSI. So there is no problem on the FSI. So what happens is more land will get freed, they'll become available. The second, in the peripheral of Mumbai areas, most of them are designated as green areas. So by the time you get that converted, it takes 50 years. So, I mean, if that's going to time which you're going to get the conversions into, you're not going to be able to do it. So, in the regions where you want development to take place, you need to free up the say that their townships will come up, the local authority will be giving permissions, it won't be centralized or over-centralized for the purpose of giving approvals and this and it. So, what you really need to do is to unleash large amount of construction, as is happening in Noida, as has happened in Gurgaon earlier. So, what happens as is happening in Hyderabad? Prices have come down.
Also tell me this, you are now looking at outside of Mumbai. The Hiranandani Group has moved into other cities as well. If I were to ask you to pick which cities, other than Mumbai obviously, which is your home, which city do you think is going to be the next big thing? So someone looking to make an investment perhaps outside of Mumbai, where would you like to bet your money?
See, an investment is different than where the opportunities lie from a developer's perspective. So first I'll look at the developer's perspective. I think the Bombay-Pune road development is going to be huge. So everything from here to Pune is going to look beautiful. And the peripherals of Mumbai, peripherals of Delhi, peripherals of Chennai, peripherals of Bangalore, peripherals of major cities which already exist are actually going to grow exponentially very good, very fast, immediately. And I think the opportunities of investments in all these towns is going to be huge. The second cities are now going to come up also, where I think the is more entrepreneurial. So if you have a Surat, if you have a Vadodara, if you have a Ludhiana, you have a Mysore, you have cities which are the other cities which haven't really grown in the past. I think the growths will take place, but I think they're going to be, what should I say, more latent in terms of time frame of developing, because you need to create economic infrastructure which may take a couple of years more. And the third cities are where you can actually set up brand new cities, you know, like for instance, let's say Jamnagar is a city with the new industries which have come up and things like that, or Jamshedpur as it came up in the good old days and things. So you'll find industrial townships which will actually turn into mini cities and micro cities. So lots of opportunities in different ways. Where one would bet their money, to put in their money, I would bet on good people rather than good locations. I don't think locations are as important, but I think if you followed a good developer and found out what his track record was and be able to do it, he has a track record of say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, we have 30 years of track record, or people who have track record of delivery. I think that's important to really do, because you're putting in a large amount of money in the case of the real estate business. And now probably you'll get a new avenue if you move into the REITs business, where you can put a smaller amount of money and invest into it, which is more secure and this thing, and it's part of the real estate business. So investments will be of various types of investments which is going to happen in the next couple of years. So it'll be very interesting, and huge monies will be put into this line, probably as much as the stock market, if not more.
Alright, so that's interesting and something to watch out for. Another very quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk to Niranjan about projects in the pipeline and new markets that he's looking at. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide on ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. We're in conversation with Niranjan Hiranandani. Niranjan, I want to very quickly ask you, there are a lot of analysts right now who say that Mumbai has 36 months worth of unsold inventory in the real estate market. Do you believe that is true? Do you believe that it is going to take us 36 months before we're able to sell everything we've built so far?
See, each company has to work out its own economics. If somebody wants to build the building and then sell it, obviously it'll take 3 years for him to hold it, because he'll sell it at the end of the game when he expects the price to rise. In the last couple of years, with inflation being what it is, it made sense to even hold the stocks. If he couldn't sell it, I mean, he benefited by an increase in price. So the person who actually couldn't sell made more money than the person who could sell. So sometimes, you know, the market can be a strange accident. So what we're saying is that this stock is of a particular segment. As you talked about, it's segmentation where probably the prices are above 5,000, 6,000 rupees a foot plus. But if you look at the new segment that is going to come or starting to come, which is in the range of about 3,000 to 4,000 rupees a foot at this present time, I think there is zero stock availability. So if you look at a market segmentation at the lower end of the spectrum, there is hardly with any developer worth his salt any stocks remaining whatsoever. So it depends on how you really do your business and structure your business. Do you want to sell immediately, lower the price and sell it and fight inflation because your cost of construction can go up, or you want to hold the property and sell it at the end and be able to at least take advantage of the fact that at the finished product you'll get a better price. So that's from their point. But lower segment, there's no stock at all.
Well, this is another question we got on Twitter. Manoj Kumar Garg has written in saying there's a huge difference in the rates that you charge over somebody right next door to you. Now, I have another question to you to add to that. Do you believe that if we bring in the transparency, we bring in the systems to weed out the people who are not as reputed as some of the others, then maybe the reputed builders won't be charging such a premium for the reputation?
There is always going to be a difference between a product which a branded company sells because of the assurance of what you deliver. So if you go and have a cup of tea in that 5-star hotel, you're going to pay a different price than what you can have a cup of tea outside. So you know there is a price difference and you're still wanting to pay for a cup of tea in the priced hotel. So a differential in prices will always be there. But Hiranandani will also make a low-cost segment, a differential segment in the market, which will be affordable. So we will get into, this morning Mr. Anand Mahendra has mentioned in the newspapers that he talked about how affordable housing will be created, and he's going on to do it in Mahindra company also. So it's not that the segment is not going to be done, whether it's the Tatas, whether it's Mahindra, whether it's the Hiranandanis, we're all going to go into that segment.
Define affordable housing. From the point of view of Mumbai, are we talking space, are we talking ticket size?
You see, the government talks in terms of size. I love the definition given by Mr. Deepak Parekh, which is 5 years income. So whatever is 5 years income of a person, that's the affordability a person should have, and at the most it can stretch to 7 years income, gross income. So if you have a house which is 5 years of your gross income, that's the affordable house that actually you can afford. Of course, in Mumbai you have to stretch much more, but that's a national average that you need to do. That's the affordable price for the house that you should have.
For the rest of the city, we know that a lot of the construction from the Hiranandani Group was in Powai. A lot of it now is happening in Thane. What are the other areas that you're looking at? Whether it's across the country,
we're looking at several areas. We are in Bangalore, we are in Chennai, we are planning to be in Hyderabad, we're looking at Pune, we're looking at Ahmedabad, we're looking at Nasik. So we're looking at various centers at this point of time. But I think at this point of time, the opportunities are going to explode. So we're looking at a lot more, but we haven't put our finger there yet.
All right, unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you so much for speaking with us. So there are plenty of opportunities. We might be looking at a country where each of us has a home in the next 10 years or so. Thank you so much for watching. Stay with the Property Guide if you have questions for Niranjan Hiranandani. My email ID is at the bottom of your screen. So is my Twitter ID. Feel free to get in touch with us. Thanks so much for watching.